Alright, guys, how is it going? What is up, guys? My name is Nathaniel Gertis. You should know this by now. If you have purchased this tutorial, then you are probably familiar enough with me to know my name. But anyways, so I'm going today to take you through my Photoshop basics in terms of editing portraits. So I have this photo here of Kayla Shea. She's one of my best friends, and we're gonna dive into this portrait and how to make it all nice and beautiful. Not saying that it isn't already, but we're gonna spice it up a bit with Photoshop. So if you're just getting started with everything, you're gonna need Lightroom, you're gonna need Photoshop, and I'm going to explain everything. If you need to learn how to edit with just Lightroom, I have a tutorial on that on my website, but this one will be more geared towards the Photoshop workflow for a basic portrait to make it look all sorts of nice and pretty and refined. So first thing that we're going to do here is I've included this photo in case you want to edit along with me in the package. So it should be the CR2, the raw lossless file. You're going to load it into Lightroom, and then I'm going to go in from here. I'm going to right click and hit edit in Adobe Photoshop. It's going to load up here. All right, here we go. So now that we've put this into Photoshop, we're going to roll through the edit, and once we're done, we're going to hit save. We're going to go back into Lightroom and finish it up. But initially, what you're going to start by doing is over here on the bottom right, you're going to make a copy of this layer you can either click and drag down to this new layer, or you can, if you're using a Mac, it's Command J. I don't know the shortcut for PCs, I'm sorry. But initially it's Command J, and you're going to make two copies actually of the first original image. And then from there, you're going to come up here to the very top under Filter, and you're going to go into Other and then High Pass. Now, High Pass filter, it generally makes things a little bit sharper, a little bit cleaner. So I usually keep my radius between 3 and 3.5. We'll stick with 3.5 right now. Press OK. And then you're going to go over here to the blending mode, and you're going to go down to soft light. Now, just from this, I'm going to kind of do a before and after. Use this eye here to hide the layer. And you can see already, coming in here, that it's already sharpened it up a good amount. So, but that's not all we're going to do here. We're going to do something called dodging and burning. So on this layer that we just created, the high pass layer, we're going to come in here nice and tight, and you can press O, or you can go over here to the side and click this. I'm going to click and hold, and then go over to dodge. And we're going to start with that. Now you can use the bracket keys on your keyboard to make the brush bigger or smaller, or you can come up here and kind of adjust it as you want to. And I usually keep the hardness just down to 0. So what I'm going to first start by doing here, when you're doing dodging and burning, it's not necessarily creating highlights and shadows. What your goal here is to do is essentially refine the highlights and shadows that are already there. So right now we're in the dodging stage, and we're going to brighten some things up. So I'm going to go in here. I have the exposure up here at 25%. Sometimes it's automatically at 50. I'm going to brighten up this highlight. And I'm actually going to go around and brighten up the iris. A little smaller here. And I'm going to do the same with the other eye. Kind of just going smaller so it kind of emulates the fading of the edge of the eye, because usually the edge of the eye is dark and it goes into being brighter. So we'll start with a bigger dodge, and then a smaller one, and then an even smaller one. Okay, and then also the cheeks usually get dodged a little bit. I'm gonna go in here, brighten it up. I'm gonna add an extra little highlight right here. And then we have a highlight along the bridge of her nose. And then her lip. These are important parts that I always typically get. Here we got a little highlight right there, a little highlight right there. Just highlight. And the top of her chin. And then the forehead. I usually just kind of do the whole forehead. Sometimes there's a bit of a crease right along the middle of their foreheads. But okay. Zooming out. I'm gonna get her arm right here. Boom. Backside's got a little light too. This bright part of her arm. And then her hair. I'm gonna kind of come in here. Just going over it again and again. This little brighter right here, so I'm gonna add a little extra. Down here. Her hair is blonde, so it's just gonna look, or it's like, it's bright white, so it's gonna look really good the more I kind of do it. Darker hair kind of sometimes looks a little bit worse when you go in here too much and try and dodge too much. Oh, and then also a collarbone right there. That's really nice. And then we have her neck a little bit. There's a little highlight right there. A little highlight right there. Right here on her chest. All right, this looks pretty good so far. Even just those minor adjustments, but you know, looking at it, you can kind of tell it's been manipulated. But we're gonna actually do some dodge or some burning here too. Actually, sometimes I only stick to dodging, but we'll burn in here as well. You have to be careful. I'm gonna get a little bit of the eyebrow. Sometimes if they have lighter hair, you don't want to go too dark with those. And then her nose, right in here. Her lips, this is usually what I'll always burn, is right in there. Alright, and then just kind of the edge of her hairline always looks pretty good. She kind of got a weird patch right here, so I'm gonna just darken it in a little bit so she doesn't look bald at all. And then right here, just the shadows. Alright, and then we're gonna go before, after. Wow. That is something already. Okay, but it's extreme and people will be able to tell. So I'm gonna come over here to the bottom right and use the opacity and bring it back. Probably either to 50 or maybe even a little bit less. Like, yeah, that's pretty good. So therefore, everything is adjusted just a little bit, but it's not over the top. It's not like crazy noticeable. So it still looks realistic, because you want it to still look realistic in the long term. You don't want people being like, well, that's obviously edited. So we're gonna do that, and I'm gonna shift click the layer before it, and so that they're both selected, and right click, and I'm gonna merge those layers. And then I'm gonna press Command J, or again, you can just drag and drop onto the new layer, and I'm gonna create another layer. And I'm gonna either click Shift Command X, or I can go into Filter and then Liquify. Now here's my philosophy when it comes to taking photos with models, and it's that if they show up and they don't look so good, that's their fault. But if you take photos of them and the photos don't look so good, and they don't look good in the photos, that's your fault. So that's my personal philosophy. So I'm going to use this Liquify tool, and we're going to kind of readjust her figure a little bit. I mean, Kayla's already a beautiful person, but just for the sake of teaching you guys how this all works, we're going to go into it. So right here, I have this warp tool, and you're going to go over into advanced mode, and these are the typical parameters I'll use, not necessarily brush size, but the brush density is 83, the brush pressure is 21. Now, I don't know who came up with those numbers, but those numbers seem to be ideal, and then you can adjust as you may. So I'm going to start right here. Her pocket is kind of bulging up, so we're going to push this in. Perfect. And there's kind of this little dent crease right here now. We're gonna make this curve a little bit cleaner. That's good. Now we're going to bring in her waist. Bring in her arm so her arm doesn't look too big. All right, and we're going to bring in this side. Oh, and see we have a little bump right here. It's all flattened out now. All right, this is starting to look pretty good. Okay, and sometimes what you can do here with the warp tool, I don't need to do it with this, but you can use it by hitting W, using the brackets again to make it, the bracket keys to make it bigger or smaller. You can, like, if her eyebrows were like off, you can, you know, push one up a little bit, and or like if one of her eyes was like much more open than the other, then you can, you know, use it to kind of open it up just a little bit more so they're symmetrical. So even that, wow, actually might even just keep that little adjustment because it looks kind of nice, a little bit wider, but now I can keep it normal. But yeah, so I made some adjustments to her figure. This looks pretty good. Let me just look at this and make sure that it doesn't seem too much. Maybe around here it just seems a little too much, so we're gonna tone it back. Tone it back. Let's see here. Maybe bring our shoulder out a little bit more. I don't want anything to be too unrealistic. But that looks pretty good, so we're gonna stick with it. Hit OK. All right, so now we have the issue. We have this grass that just is working against us now. It's like, oh, this was obviously manipulated. So we're going to use this little button right here at the bottom right-hand corner. It's a masking tool. It's a layer mask. So you're going to click it, and then you're going to press B for the brush tool, or you can come over here and use this brush tool. And you want to make sure that the color is black, okay? The opacity is 100, the flow is 100, and the hardness is 0. And what we're going to go do is we're going to go down in here, and we are going to use that and kind of brush back in the bottom. So when we do this, it kind of shines the bottom back through, and we're going to kind of brush it all back in, and then refine from there. Okay. All right, now we're gonna go along the edge here. We're gonna press X to switch these two on the left-hand side, or you can press this button, whatever works. Just make sure this is white, and you're going to brush back in the adjustments we made. All right, the only thing that doesn't look good is right here. That makes it obvious. So maybe, oops, maybe I will keep the whole pocket deal. We'll just keep that in. And that looks fine. Now everything kind of doesn't look as manipulated. Everything looks pretty good. And we're going to kind of blur it out anyways at the end. So, yeah, it looks good. I'm going to make a copy of the layer behind with Command J, or you can drag and drop. Shift click them both together and merge the layers. Cool. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use one of these adjustment layers down at the bottom. You can click them right here. I always use down here though, the very bottom right hand corner. Click, and we're going to start with levels. I typically just press auto, but for the sake of showing you guys what this is, I will go through the process with you guys. So essentially this is all the information in the histogram. On the left is your darks, and on the right is your whites, and then we have the midtones. So if I shift this all the way over here, these are moving the midtones, so when we go into curves later, this will seem like the middle. And this will seem like the brightest point, and this will seem like the darkest point. What we're going to do here though is, so typically Yeah, let me try and use an example here. Maybe I can make an adjustment so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, that didn't really work. All right, so right in here, so let's just say this histogram cut off right here and it ended. That would mean that there's no real information here, and that means that the photo will appear a bit to be faded because the darks don't start from up here. So what you'd want to do is in the level section, you would move this black part all the way over to where the edge is so that there is absolute black where it cuts off. Okay, see how even in the photo, when I move this, it kind of brings the absolute blacks back. We're going to delete this brightness and contrast layer. And then you just do the same with the highlights. If the highlights are like end actually right here, you'd bring this all the way to here, and then therefore the whitest point would be right here. And that would be where the information is. But we have highlights over here, probably from the sky and the sun, so we're going to keep it at the end there. And this is the midtones. You can kind of just adjust this to what feels right. Most of the information is shifted to the left, so I'm going to bring it a little bit more left. All right. I'm going to bring this on a little bit too. Maybe like 5. Cool. And we're going to stick with that. Next, I'm going to open up brightness and contrast. I always hit auto at first just to see what the computer recognizes it should do, and then kind of make my own judgment from there to see if I like it or not. Okay, so it's made some minor adjustments. I don't think I'm going to stick with them. So what we're going to do here is put things back to 0. And what I do is I'll grab the slider, I'll click and hold, and I'll look at the photo. I'll swing it from left to right and just kind of, oh, it's not showing. I was like, why isn't it making adjustments? Boom. So I'll slide it from left to right without looking at where my slider is or any of the numbers, and just see what I like. And just kind of dial it in. Okay. I like it there, and then I'm going to do the same with the contrast. And usually here, my goal is more to make it less contrasted and a little more flat. So we're actually going to keep it at 0. You don't want anything to be really too bright or too dark at this point, but we're going to stick with that. All right, so next we're going to go into hue and saturation. Now this is where we do color correction. Now I'll go a little bit more in depth here so you can kind of understand what you can do with this. So right here on the right, you have these adjustment layers in this bottom right hand corner. And to the right of the adjustment layers is these layer masks. So I'm going to press B for brush, or you can press brush over here on the left, turn to black. And I'm just going to dial or just draw. You're not going to be able to see anything. If you need to see what you're doing, you can just move one of these all the way over. And I'm just going to brush in her skin. Okay. With the black brush. You don't need to really worry about being like too like exact because we're targeting a color. Okay, so boom, we got her skin. That looks fine. Now what we're going to do here is I press Command I, or I think you can do it from image. I never use it. I always just use the shortcut Command I, but it's like, yeah, image adjustment and then invert is what you're looking for. But then I'm going to put this back to normal. Now what I have only her skin essentially selected. I'm going to go to the yellows, and I'm going to drag this out a little bit to make sure we have her whole skin color. And then I'm going to kind of adjust it just to kind of dial in like what her skin tone is going to be. So for this one, her skin tone's already pretty good. I'm going to just go -1. Then what I'll do is I'll bring down the lightness a little bit. This helps give her a little bit of tanness, and then bring back the saturation. And then let's see before and after. It just made her essentially look a little bit more tan. Nothing crazy, but at least just a little bit. Cool. And that looks good. Like I said, nothing major. She just now looks a little bit more tan. Now we're going to make another adjustment layer with the hue and saturation. And we're going to use the brush. We're going to brush in just the background. You can adjust this all the way if you need to be able to see what you're doing here. Like I said, don't worry about being too thorough or too like detail oriented because you're selecting colors particularly, and it's all right to be a little bit off here. All right, so this is fine. Then Command I to flip it around. We're going to put this back to normal, and we're going to adjust this to the color that we want. I'm going to make this a little bit more red. I'm going to darken it. All right, wait. Nah. Do I want to do this? No. I'm going to keep it normal. But I will bring down the saturation a little bit. We're going to make it negative. -8. That's fine. It's a little redder. Looks really nice. Okay. Boom. And then we're going to go into vibrance. And what I usually do is I just kick up the vibrance. I like the vibrance pretty high. Maybe like 44. Bring in a little saturation for this one. Each photo is, you want to give it its own unique edit. You know, you want to pay attention to what that photo needs, but for this one, I'm going to bring in a little saturation. Sometimes I don't. Boom. That looks fine. Boom. All right, we're looking good so far. Okay, next, what I'll play around with is a photo filter. Let's see if I want to make it like warmer. And go over to this one. Make sure the preserve luminosity is on. If it's not, it's gonna like dull the photo. Nah, and I'll maybe make it a little bit warmer. That's nice. Just a little bit. I just don't want the whites to become a different color. Kind of makes it less realistic if you start changing the whites too much. You want the whites to be perfect white. All right. So next we're going to go into the curves. I'm going to make these 3 points. And if you want to add fade to your photo, you can just do it by adjusting this anchor point at the end. Sometimes a realistic looking faded photo will also have the anchor point brought down on the highlights as well. But again, the left side is the shadows and the right side is the highlights, and we got the middle is the midtones, obviously. Usually people, what they'll do is they'll expose the subject like in the middle. So when you're adjusting the midtones, usually you're adjusting the subject more likely based on how you shoot. But we're going to brighten that up. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Actually, I'm going to bring this up. Usually, very simply, people will make this what's called an S-curve. Just bring up the highlights, bring down the shadows, and you got just an S-curve, and it looks fine. But we're gonna go in here and just really make sure that we like what we're doing. I don't want the darks to be too dark. All right, that looks really nice. And then we're gonna go in here to the blues. Make those 3 anchor points on the intersections. And then either when you rise, you get blue. When you bring it down, you get yellow. And you'll do this for what you want, depending on if you want to bring certain colors into the highlights or shadows or the midtones. And so let's see, for this one, maybe I'll bring a little bit of blues into the shadows and yellows into the midtones, and we'll keep, I'll bring the, let's see, just watching the photo and kind of making adjustments. Just seeing what I like here. All right, that looks pretty nice. Just this basic little thing. And we're gonna go into green. So this adjusts the green, or if you go to the opposite end, it makes it magenta. I'm gonna bring a little bit of magentas into the shadows. It's very minimal. Bit of green. All right, yeah, making a little more green into the highlights. Okay, now to the reds, and this is red and teal. All right, and I'm just kind of adjusting this and watching it and seeing what I want to ultimately do with the colors here. All right, so I've decided on a little bit more teal. I also just want to be watching like her skin tone and making sure it's not manipulated too much. I don't want her to look funky at all. We're gonna keep those just like that, and let's see before and after. All right, so far that looks pretty darn good. Maybe a little less teal. Go back in here. Yeah, I'm gonna make it a little more yellow than blue. Bring that back up. All right, and then just kind of re-going through and just making sure I like what I'm doing here. All right, so now we have all these layers, which is great. And now we're gonna kind of go back real quick, and we're gonna clean a few other things up. I guess I should have gone and done this earlier, but it doesn't really matter. I got really excited, but it's all good. So we're gonna do something called frequency separation. Now you're gonna click this layer, and you're gonna press Command J twice, or just click drag and make 2 more layers. And on the first one, you're gonna go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and then gonna go to about 4. I'm gonna do 4.5. Press OK. And then I'm gonna drag that layer beneath the one below it. All right, and then with that one, I'm gonna go to Image, Apply Image, and I'm gonna press for Layer, background copy 5, so the Gaussian blur layer we just used, and the blending mode is going to be on subtract, and then you're going to use these preferences. Scale is 2 and offset is 128. Now this is going to look a lot like the high pass filter that we did before, but it's different. So then you're going to hit OK, and then in the blending mode on the right, you can click that and press linear light. And boom, it looks normal again. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to make a little folder and drag those 2 into it, just so you can kind of do before and afters. There's no real changes right now, but you'll see. So using this subtracted filter, I'm going to press S, and that's the stamp tool. You can see it over here on the left. Sometimes these tools hide other tools that are useful, but right now we're going to use the stamp tool. And the stamp tool right now is going to be used to remove textures that we do not want. So you can hold Alt or Option and to sample a spot, like boom, and you just click, and then you let go of it, and now you're sampling that spot. So every time I do that, I'm just sampling a spot next to what I want to get rid of. So if I want to get rid of this little dot here, I'm going to sample, click and hold Alt or Option, and then just click on a spot that's right next to wherever it is. Just click, and then let go of Alt or Option, and then you can just boom, remove it. So I'm going to get rid of some dots right here. Click, boom, right here. See how I'm just kind of getting rid of these splotches, and this helps clean up the face, make it really nice, clean up any unwanted textures. There's like some just weird little textures in here. She's got a little wrinkle right here. Everybody's got a little wrinkle right there. She's got some hair coming down, so I'm going to kind of remove that. She has this birthmark. She's got a couple birthmarks. You want to keep the major ones because those are what make them who they are. And you want to make sure that you're sticking with, their authenticity. Some models will get upset if you remove things that are important to them. They've known you manipulate the photo too much, especially if it's like a popular model. Like they'll be like, all of my followers will know that I have like this birthmark or this scar or something like that. Like, don't get rid of it, because everyone will know it's edited then. And the goal is to kind of like make it just edited enough where people know, but like as subtly as possible. That's the kind of balance. And I'm kind of just sort of softening up what's going on here, under the eyeshadows. Oh shit, I don't want to get rid of that one. If you make a mistake, you can press Command Z, but that'll only undo the last move. If not, you have to use, what did I just press? You have to do step backward, which is, let's see, what is going on here? All right, yeah, you just got to go to boom, step backwards, which is Option Command Z, boom, and then yeah, you can undo it. All right, so from there, let's see if there's anything else I want to remove. And she's got like little birthmarks and stuff. Whoops, stamp. I guess I can get rid of these. Not like the biggest of deal. Okay, and you can use this also to kind of remove kind of stray hairs, flyaways, blur them out, makes them almost unnoticeable. We get pretty detail oriented around these parts. Just making sure everything looks all clean. It's the kind of stuff that gets you the callbacks. And you make them look all good. They feel all confident and stoked on what they got. You did a really good job. Okay. Everything looks fine. All right, now for the layer underneath. You can click it, and then you're going to press the lasso tool, or L, and that's up here. And I'm actually on the wrong, I'm on the polygon lasso tool. So we're going to just click over. You can click and hold, then go over to the regular lasso tool, and I'm going to use the feather as 18. Depending on the size of your image, you might need to go down as low as like 5 or 1, or if it's really close up, you can go higher to like 20 or 30. But what I'm going to do here is this is used for the skin underneath. If anything ever looks blotchy or anything like that, I can kind of give you an example here. We're going to clean up her cheek first off. Boom. It's kind of hard to notice, but there's a different skin tone from right here to right here. So we're going to kind of help blend that all together. And we go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to bump up the radius a little bit. I'm going to do 9 or 8.9 is fine. Okay. And then Command D for deselect, or you can go to select and then deselect right here. Okay, and I'm going to do it with her little shadow under her eye. And then you could use Command F to repeat what you just did, or just go down to here, Filter, and Gaussian Blur again. Boom. You see how that smoothed that out? I'm going to get her forehead. Command F, or up here. All right, I'm going to do her chin. Okay. Zoom out a little bit. Deselect. Back to lasso. And I'm going to maybe get her arm here, just to make sure it's all congruent. Boom, that really softened that up. You got like kind of a red blotchy thing that's going on right here. Boom. Gonna get all this. Oliver's skin's gonna look all nice and smooth now. And you don't have to go as intense. Oops, deselect. But you can if you want. You can just use less of a blur if you don't want it to be as kind of smooth. But using this over here on the bottom right, the group, you can hide and, you know, just kind of see what you've done here. Yeah, it is significantly better. Insane. Okay, now I'm gonna shift click with the group to the layer below it, right click and merge the layers. And for anything that you couldn't really get before, you're gonna hit J, which is the healing brush. Or you can just control click. And you want the healing brush tool, not the spot heal. I mean, spot healing's pretty good. I prefer the healing brush because it goes along the same lines as you hold Alt or Option, and you click, and you can kind of it uses it to sample the area that you decide on, not using content awareness, and just to, you know, fill in anything you couldn't really get with the process of frequency separation. So I can maybe get all this. It kind of just makes it go away. So I will sometimes even go in here and just kind of use that, and that really makes it disappear. You want to be careful though, because when you use it, if you like get an edge of something, it's going to make it look weird. So you have to make sure it's like separate enough. And if you have trouble, like you want to go all the way to here, all the way to the edge, because you're going to get this blur, what you can do is you can use the stamp tool. You press S and you sample. And you just go boom. This is going to do it, I mean, a perfect kind of thing, but you can get it all the way to the core. Okay, you have this stamp though. And then you can press J and kind of re-heal it back into place. That's just for some stuff that gets really close to like the edges of like the eye or the skin or the hair, and you don't want to have that kind of feathering effect. You can clone stamp it out all the way to the edge and then use the spot healing brush to the parts right before it, just so it really makes it nice and even. Okay, so something I'm noticing right here is her arm looks a little bit red, just right here. So what I'll do is I'll go back over to these hues and saturations, and I'm going to make another hue and saturation layer, press brush, and go in here and just brush the red spots. Okay, that looks fine. I think I got everything. I can only tell by making these adjustments. But I'm gonna Command I for invert. And then I'm gonna go to, let's get back to 0, go into the reds, kind of adjust it so we're encompassing the oranges and stuff too, and the magentas to make sure we're really getting it, and just slide this just a little bit to the right, just so I'm gonna actually bring down the saturation a little bit as well. All right, now that's not much, but it made it more tan, that red spot, and therefore it's just gonna look a little bit better. It seems to be like, it's kind of hard to see, but there's like some weird greens in here too now. I wonder if that was my doing. Yeah, it might have gone a little too intense. Maybe bring it down to 2. All right. Cool. That's fine. That's nothing too crazy. Just looking to make it so there's not like any red blotches or anything. We're really just helping to even out all the different skin tones and everything that's going on here. Now I'm going to go back into here. It's going to be called Group A now. And I'm going to use the sharpen tool. It's over here on the left. It actually doesn't have a keyboard shortcut normally, I don't think. If it's hidden by the blur tool, just click and hold and go over to it. You can use the brackets to, you know, make things bigger or smaller. And I'm going to sharpen up the eyes. Sharpen up the lips. Going over it twice. It's at 50% strength. Eyebrows. Maybe a little bit of the nose. A little bit of the hand. some of the hair, the main parts of the hair. Sometimes some of the texture of the clothes is really nice, and I'm gonna get that right now. Okay, so that's all well and good. Now it really pops. All right, I'm gonna create and click on the top. I can create a folder, or yeah, a new group. I'm gonna shift click at all and kind of drag it into there. And let's look at the before and after so far. Just so much better. Everything looks just so much better. Wow. All right. So what I'm gonna do last, and this is something just I personally like to do, I'm gonna use Command J, create another copy, or you can drag and drop. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm gonna bump that up to like, let's do 13. Okay, and then I'm gonna use a layer mask, Command I to invert it, and then I'm gonna press G for gradient, and I have this gradient right here up at the top. You can click on it. I can click the second one. It's on black right now. That's all right. I'm gonna press X, and that's gonna flip it because down here, or you can switch these two on the left. I'm gonna make it white, and if I go like this, oh shoot, I need to actually do it the opposite way. So disregard that. We're gonna make this back to white. Command I by clicking on it, and Command I. Then we're gonna press X, boom, to make the gradient black. And then you can kind of go like this. And then this creates this really nice, like kind of soft fade. And I'm gonna press brush, B for brush, or click it over here on the left, and draw in black, like the mane of her. Just so it isn't too soft on her as a person. And then I'm going to click on the layer and then turn the opacity down. Let's do like 34. And then that creates this nice, really soft look around her. Yeah, and then I'm going to create another layer. Boom. Press G again, make sure we're on this gradient. Sometimes G is also for paint bucket, but we're going to use the gradient. And I'm going to click on here. I'm going to go to white. And then I see this little sunflower. I'm going to brighten it up. A little bit less. And then I'm going to switch the blending mode to overlay. Now that brightens that all up a little bit. Let me dial it back just a little bit. We're going to use 69 because that number is hilarious. I can create another layer mask, and then maybe I'll do like, I'm going to click on this again, and then click on this little bottom tile, the color, and I'm going to make it maybe like a little bit orange or yellowish orange. Oh. Boom. And then, yeah, make a little gradient. And maybe I'll do overlay. Or I could also do color. Nah, that doesn't look as good. Maybe soft light. You gotta kind of play around with these things to see what you like. All right, that's fine. I'm gonna create another layer. Go back to the gradient, and I'm gonna go to this first one. Now I'm gonna press this top little tile and turn the opacity to 0. Hit enter. And now the outside is black, and I can go like this. Or yeah, I'm pressing Command Z to undo what I don't like. But I'm trying to get it, there you go. So the edges are kind of soft. And then I'm gonna go to the blending mode. I'm gonna change it to overlay. Bring it down a little bit. All right, that's good. I'm actually gonna bring this opacity down even more, so it's not too bright. This one's at 100. There's the issue. All right. And that just really helps create a nice little vignette. Sometimes I won't use vignette, but for this one I'm going to, because we have the subject right here, and just want to help dial in the focus on the subject. Now, what you can also do is, if you want to create a little bit of depth, like sometimes like I can use a brush, press B. I'm actually going to bring this back below everything else. You want this vignetted layer to be kind of on top. And let's see here. So let's, oh, whoops. Enter. And kind of create some little those. And create another layer, make some smaller ones. It's too big. Alright, create another layer, some smaller ones. Alright, and then I can go back to the first one, turn down the opacity a bunch. Actually, I'll probably add a blur, Gaussian blur. That's fine. Boom. Opacity is going to be at 21. And we'll go to this, actually, 34. Go to the next one, blur, Gaussian blur, and I want less of a blur for the second one, because we're bringing that one into focus. At 8.9 is fine. Boom. Dial that back. Now these ones, the top ones, you don't really want too much of a blur if you're going to blur them even at all. Maybe just a little bit. 0.3 is fine. Still going to turn the opacity down a little bit. And this just creates a little bit of atmosphere. I actually don't like the big one, so I'm just going to hide that layer altogether. Just a couple of these little guys is just fine. And if I want to add a little color, I can press the adjustment layer and then go to photo filter. Boom. And make it like, I'm going to turn off preserve luminosity. And I'm going to right click on the photo filter and use create clipping mask. And this is only going to now apply to the dot layer. Actually, I wanted, what layer is this one? What I did here. Oh wait, that was right. Okay. So, and then I can bring it up, and that kind of makes it that color. I can hold Alt and then drag and drop it. Boom, and then right click, create clipping mask. Now I've created on both of those. We're going to make less of a color change with those ones, but still kind of, there we go. So now they look a little bit more like the right color, and everything looks good. All right, so far this photo looks pretty good. It might be just a little bit warm for me in total. Maybe if I, yeah, maybe I do like it without that photo filter. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it off. I've decided. You know, you gotta go in and make the refinements and see what you like all in total. All right, so far, this is nice, and I like what we've done here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to File, and then Save, and then it should save through here. Yeah, just give it a second. Oh yeah, saving at ramming speeds. There we go, 93%. Say what? 95. 99. All right, and boom, we are done. Now that it's saved, we're gonna open up Lightroom, and it should just be right there. Boom. Wow, look at that banger. Let's see, before, after, before, after, before, after. So much better. Holy freaking moly. All right, now I'm gonna go here into develop, As you can see, I shot this with a 50mm 1.4 lens at a 1/100 shutter speed, f2.8, ISO 200. So now I'm going to make some final refinements in here. It's still a TIFF, it's still a lossless file, so I'm not too worried about it, and just kind of make some adjustments. Sometimes I like bringing down the highlights here. Man, it's actually, I'm not going to adjust those quite yet. I do the whites, make them pop, bring in the darks. That looks really nice. Maybe a little contrast. Ooh. We already made things look really soft, so maybe I might bring a little clarity into it. Sharpen them back up. I'm not going to mess with the tone curves. I don't really need to adjust with the hue and saturation. I already kind of made those adjustments as I like them. Sometimes there's like really blue skies, and sometimes I'll bring down the luminance and the blues after I've gone here. All right, and then we're gonna go into sharpening, and this is what I like is I'll bring it up a little bit. 34, we're gonna use masking as well. This essentially determines what is gonna get sharpened, and the more you mask it, the less gets sharpened, because it's saying if there's like, it's looking for edges. So the more masked it is, the more of a difference between pixels there has to be for it to incorporate the sharpen. So I'm gonna use just 34. And sometimes I'll throw a little green in here. This photo like looks like it should be a little bit grainy. All right, and I don't need to make a vignette anymore. What I might do is use a radial tool and just kind of put this around her. Double click the effect to reset everything, and then I'm gonna maybe bring down the highlights. Maybe even bring in the shadows. Maybe even soften up the clarity. All right. Now I'm gonna create another one. Click new, boom. And then double click effect, invert, so it only affects mainly her, and see if there's anything I like. Or I want to make an adjustment on, maybe brighten her up a little bit. Maybe we can do a little more sharpening. All right, and there we go. That looks very nice. And now from here, that was our Photoshop job. This is adding Lightroom. It really just finished off the photo. It made it look fantastic. Holy moly. All right, and I think this will conclude our Photoshop workflow for editing a basic portrait. And I really like how this turned out, and I hope Kayla likes it. I'll have to send it to her. She'll be stoked. She's been digging these close-up portraits lately. So again, just to recap, going through this whole thing, when you edit a photo, it's your duty as a photographer to make sure that the model looks good afterwards. Be conscientious about making things too fake. You don't want to go over the top. Less is more. Be sure to dial it back. Evening out skin tones and just cleaning up the skin and all that, and using these layers to your best advantage to help make it all nice and pretty. But every photo deserves a different kind of edit. Every photo needs to be thought about and edited in its own way. This is just the way I chose to edit this photo in particular. However, a lot of the concepts stay the same, such as dodging and burning, and using the frequency separation, going through the levels, the brightness, the hue and saturation, all these, the curves. But generally, this is how I like it. Anyways, guys, if you guys have any questions at all, you guys can always send me an email from here telling me, hey, I got your Photoshop workflow tutorial and I have this little question or whatever. You can always reach out to me. I'll do my best to reply as promptly as I possibly can. but I like how this turned out so far, and I really hope that this has helped you out. And if you like what you saw here, make your own edits and tag me in it, or like tag me in the caption, and say that, hey, like, I learned this from Nathaniel Gertis, just so I can check it out. Sometimes people randomly tag me in photos, and if I know that, hey, you did this based on what you learned from my tutorial, then I can actually check it out and take it a little more seriously than as if it was a random person just editing a photo and trying to tag me in it. So just so I know, I want to see what you guys can do with this tutorial, and I really hope it helped out, guys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day or night or whatever time you're in, and I hope that all things are great, and I really wish the best success for all of you guys in your photo taking endeavors. All right, guys, I look forward to your success. Peace.